quick. We'll see if Collins is able to do that here this weekend in our round 5 feature match from Richmond.
Good coffee.
I hope so. Is it good? Where's it from? Starbucks?
Convention Center, no.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Starbucks, no.
Convention Center's cooking it up today for you?
It's not bad. Better than expected. In my free mug. And you know what? They got to refill it. They come back to the room. You can get your own. You can get a kitchen set. You play it the right way. You play it the right way, you get a kitchen set.
Yeah, it's like The Price is Right.
Exactly.
You just walk away with everything. $1, Bob.
Yeah.
Mountain Fanatical Firebrand. Ben is down to 19. He's going to play a Fibblethip and draw a card. The Homunculus is here as we head back over to Collins Mullen. Both these players 4-0. Fibblethip the Lost is a 1-1. When there's the battlefield, draw a card. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. When Fibblethip becomes the target of a spell, shuffle Fibblethip into its owner's library. This is a great Mox Amber Enabler, which Ben does have in his deck.
And honestly, not bad against Mono Red. They got a bunch of one-timeless creatures for you to block and trade with. And yes, as you mentioned, a great Mox Amber Enabler.
And there is a Mox Amber. So, in response to Mox Amber, Collins is going to shoot down Fibblethip with the Fanatical Firebrand. It means that beautiful piece of jewelry is not on just yet. You see, add 1 mana of any color among legendary creatures and planeswalkers you control. A card that many have been thinking about once they saw it in Dominaria. It hasn't done much just yet, as there is Teferi, Time Raveler, that's going to bounce that Gia2 Lava Runner. It's going to fall down to 1 counter. And we will head back over to Collins in just a moment here, I imagine. A Mox, another Mox, which means that it's going to be a little bit of mana here into a treasure map. And we're going to head back over to Collins Mullen, see if he can really get something going on this 3rd turn. At the very least, you have to imagine Teferi's going to die. That's a mountain. It could be a Chain Whirler, and it is. So we'll whirl some chains. We'll take care of that Teferi. Deal a point over to Benjamin as well, and now the Lava Runner will come across. And we'll head back over to Ragan, who does not have a legendary permanent that feeds the Mox at this moment. Looks like on the upkeep it'll be an activation of Treasure Map. Take a look at the top card for the Scribe.
And Treasure Cove is not legendary, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
But keep in mind that the Mox Amber checks on legendary creatures and
yeah, you can't even do it with a... That's right. If you could do it with a Ganjo Castle, I'm sure we'd have seen that in Modern by now.
I think so,
right.
Yes.
Yep.
Hey, Howled Fountain enters the battlefield tapped. We're going to head back over to Collins Mullen. You do wonder how these Azorius Super Friends decks and all these other kind of unique decks square up against mountains, small creatures, and burn spells.
Well, the Planeswalkers are going to be a little tough for Ragan to play on stable boards here. He's going to be leaning very heavily on his sweepers. He has a couple copies, full playset of Cleansing Nova and a main deck Settle the Wreckage as well. But he's got to kind of shore up the board here a little bit before he can start leveraging his Planeswalkers. Otherwise, they're just going to be speed bumps.
There'll be a Chain Whirler and a Lava Runner that are going to come across here in the red zone. We'll see what the follow-up is here in just a moment for Collins. We know he's got a couple of things in his hand that he can do. I know the mono red deck list may not be that interesting because it is mono red after all. There's not a fluctuation, but for Benjamin Ragan and his deck list, you can find that on Cardboard Live. We'll also, again, have a deck tech with you, for you, a little bit later with Ragan, which we've already filmed today.
So if you have a Karn Scion of Urza, you cannot tap Mox Amber for colorless?
That's correct.
Very nice.
Ragan with that treasure map out there, an interplanar beacon, I believe, as well. And now Hallowed Fountain's going to end the battlefield untapped. This Looks like it's a Narset, I believe. No, it's Kasmina. That's Kasmina. We got to make sure we know what all these Planeswalkers do. And again, you see Collins taking a look. We're going to do the exact same thing. Kasmina, Enigmatic Mentor, 4 mana, 5 loyalty. Spells your opponent's cast that target a creature or Planeswalker you control cost 2 more to cast. So we'll call that kind of the Frost Titan-esque ability. And then -2, create a 2/2 blue wizard creature token, draw a card, then discard a card. And that's exactly what Benjamin Ragan is going to do right now.
I don't know how into this tapping that I am here from Ragan's side, because he has Negate in hand, and should he lose his Kasmina in combat next turn, he will be unable to cast Negate during Colin's second main phase. I suppose no, never mind. He didn't have a legendary. He didn't have a legendary anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, never mind. Excuse me.
I knew you'd get there.
Thanks, man.
I believed in you. Negate's going to counter that shock that went after that 2/2 token. So we head back over to Collins. Collins will draw a card. He's got a copy of Risk Factor and I think a copy of Viashino Pyromancer in hand. And there's also a copy of Giatu Lava Runner hanging out there. So we get a good look with our debuting hand cams here this weekend. Want to make this War of the Spark release weekend a great experience for you guys at home. And you see Collins, who was a former Open winner a couple of years ago in Cincinnati with Humans in Modern. He's the one that got that train rolling.
I mean, Mullen here can open up on Risk Factor. Ragan does whatever he does. Then you have 2 spells in the graveyard, and your follow-up G2 Lava Runner has haste.
It's true. That certainly is an option.
Now, the other hand, you kind of would, ideally you'd like to leave the Lava Runner back as a way to fire back in if Ragan has a sweeper, but it just seems so good to me right now to Risk Factor and then play a Lava Runner. It's like Mullen, Ragan has to chump block if he takes the 4 here.
Modern challenge. Your round 2 pairings have been posted.
Really not a good answer here from Ragan. One way or the other, Mullen's getting his money, and no matter what happens here, he's going to have a second spell in the graveyard for his follow-up Lava Runner.
Spectacular. The beginnings of your events have been posted. Standard players, you can find your pairings on salmon-colored paper. 2-headed giant players.
There's that Lava Runner, as you mentioned. That one's going to have haste, and we're coming into the red zone. And he says, I'm going at you. I don't care about your Planeswalker, which I think is probably the best way to go after this.
Yeah, you would have to attack with everything to guarantee that you would get rid of the Kasmina. That seems like way too big of a cost. You get in 4 points of damage and force a chump block here. That seems mighty fine to me.
Looks like on the upkeep, we're going to see a treasure map activation. Benjamin Ragan is at 3 after all said and done. You saw Collins already starting to pick up his creatures a little bit, waiting for them all to die, and they will all die at the hands of Cleansing Nova. And now a 2/2. Looting. There with Kasmina, looking to be a pretty powerful Planeswalker. There goes another copy of Cleansing Nova. And we'll head back over to Collins. Doesn't take much for Collins to get this game over with, and Screw the Critics will do it just fine. So, Collins Mullen is going to win game number 1 here over Benjamin Ragan. Mono red aggro, pretty quickly up a game over Azorius Super Friends, and Super Friends is indeed what we're going to call this thing because there's a ton of Planeswalkers running around this deck, like Dovin and Narset, and we saw the Kasmina. There's actually different types of Dovins here, Grand Arbiter and Hand of Control. Boy, Teferis are running around in here, Karn, Ugin, the whole set, so I'm sure we'll see a lot of it over the course of this match. But for now, we turn our attention to the sideboard where there are even more Super Friends, including Teo, the Shield Mage, 3 of those, 3 Prison Realm, 3 Baffling End, 2 Negate, a Teferi Time Raveler, Sorcerer Spyglass, another copy of Kasmina, Enigmatic Mentor, and I think the most important of the bunch, Lyra Dawnbringer, not a Planeswalker, but a really good card.
The 2 Negates, too, are really good in this sort of matchup. If Mullen has any sort of sideboard, it's going to be spells. Except that's actually not true. Let's get into it.
Yeah, it might surprise you a little bit. We've got 4 Experimental Frenzies, 4 Lava Coils, 2 Legion Warboss, 2 Rekindling Phoenix, 2 Tibalt, Rakish Instigator, and another copy of Risk Factor.
Legion Warboss is all sorts of trouble for Ragan's deck. He doesn't really interact with opposing creatures all that well, and he's trying to leverage Planeswalkers, which Legion Warboss is very good against. I like the 2 Tibalts in the sideboard here. Again, I think Mullen's going to be able to kind of control the board and what combat looks like. I don't think he's at much risk of anything bad happening to his Planeswalkers, and you can sort of guess that if Ragan's got any sort of sideboard, it's very likely to involve life gain. So I don't mind bringing in the Tibalt as well, and the extra copy of Risk Factor. I would bring in those 5.
Well, those are the options there for both players. They are going to sideboard, shuffle up, and get ready for game number 2. And while they're working on that, we want to let you know about something free here at Star City Games. It is our newsletter. It's your source for Magic the Gathering news, and you can find highlights from some of our very best articles every single week, upcoming SCG Tour dates and locations, Star City Games invitational qualifiers near you, along with game nights too. Best of all, as I mentioned at the top, it's totally free to sign up for. Head over to go.starcitygames.com/newsletter. Get signed up. You're sitting on the internet anyway, so just open another tab on that browser, get signed up, and enjoy some fun and free content.
Once a week. It's content that links you to other content.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's everything a newsletter should be, even including Brian Gottlieb's beautiful smiling face. Game number 2 about to be underway here between Collins Mullen and Benjamin Ragan. Now, I know that you are doing a little bit of a Magic Online League play. As you mentioned the laptop.
Yeah.
You two are grinding away. Is it mono red there too?
It is.
How is it looking with this new set? What are we thinking? You get any new additions?
My list has no new additions as of right now. I have done the 1 Banefire, 1 Fight with Fire split for a long time. I finally got off of it, made it just 2 Banefires. I kind of want to go back to having a Fight with Fire in the sideboard because I'm running into a lot of Kefnets as a post-board plan. But besides that, I'm not super interested in Tibalt. Seems not very good to me. Although I don't know how much of that is informed by an expectation that people are going to be playing Augur Bolas, and Tibalt I think is very bad against Augur. And that really hasn't emerged so far, at least in this tournament.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how much play Augur of Bolas is actually going to see. You know, it saw a lot of play the first time it came around. It doesn't look like a lot of decks are incorporating it just yet. Now, that, of course, may change, but the 1-3 that does have a pedigree for success, nothing just yet, at least this weekend.
Yeah, it's a weird phenomenon where you got all these creatures that play really well with spells. You have Kefnet, Augur of Bolas, Terramander, a couple other things. But you can only play so many of these cards because your deck needs a critical mass of spells for any of these cards to be any good. So which one do you choose, or which ones you choose, I think is a complicated issue. It's going to take a little while to sort out.
But players will sort it out eventually over time. There's a lot of reason to be playing this format, not just on the SCG Tour, but Magic Online, Magic Arena, and everywhere else that Magic is played. It's going to be really fun watching players, go towards which Planeswalkers are right. How do you incorporate Augur of Bolas? How do you incorporate a bunch of these cards that Red got access to, That new Chandra, I don't know if that's a good card in a red deck or not. Fire Artesian, seems good.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of rate. The thing is, Experimental Frenzy is... You can only play so many 4-mana spells. Experimental Frenzy is absolutely lights out in creature matchups in a way that a Planeswalker can just never be. Mm-hmm. Because when you're behind, your Planeswalker is not good. And I play plenty of games with Experimental Frenzy where I'm behind ostensibly on the board, and I know if they don't kill it, the game's over. There's nothing that can happen that can overpower me playing 5 cards a turn. The Planeswalkers, the bar is a little bit different because it's not as good in the games that are contested. Now, it's got some advantages, obviously, people play with Mortify or other cards that are good against Experimental Frenzy that aren't necessarily good against Chandra. But as a main deck card, I don't really want to... If I'm cutting Frenzy, it's for risk factor because of the metagame, not because I'm playing Chandra as a different 4.
Fanatical Firebrand is where Collins Mullen will start things. For Benjamin Ragan, kick things off with Glacial Fortress. Now it's an island, and we're going to see a copy of Baffling End to take care of the Firebrand. So that's gone. It's all about, I think, keeping the battlefield clear and then letting your Planeswalkers take over. But that is easier said than done.
It's going to be an uphill battle here for Ragan.
Runaway Steamkin has now joined the fray, and Ragan will play a Hollow Fountain untapped. He'll fall down to 17. And that's going to be a new one there in Prison Realm. And we will head back over to Collins. Is it time to whirl some chains, perhaps? No, it'll be
That's
Legion
game.
War Boss. Yeah, that's worse news.
That is really bad news for Ben Ragan.
Legion War Boss is a card that is quite good against his deck, as you mentioned during the sideboarding portion of things, and Ragan has already used a couple different removal spells.
The hand and negates.
Yep. Here is Fibblethip. That will draw a card. Hallowed Fountain tapped and pass the turn back over to Collins.
This is going to force a Cleansing Nova all on its own.
Yeah, it should. It really should. It is that level of threat. There's a token. We'll get a Mentor activation, too. And you see Fibblethip is just going to jump in front of the Legion War Boss, which you see the Cleansing Nova in hand there for Ben Ragan. Not sure if he has land number 5 or not, but I think that's the plan. Is now here is Tybalt. Let's take a look at that Planeswalker.
I'm not sure if I like Ragan chump blocking there instead of trading off with the Goblin. It just gives away the hand. You know, and I guess the other side of that is, you know, you're going to do it anyway. You might as well save yourself a point. And I guess if I'm on Mullen's side, I think I would have preferred to play Tybalt and not activate it.
I don't see the reasoning behind activating because you are getting that point of damage, but at the same time, if
Ragan plays hand up. Ragan just played hand up.
But also, if he doesn't kill everything, it's like, okay, well, you're super dead then, right?
Right.
So I feel like you lose a little bit with your Tybalt there.
I would have just play. I'm fine playing it and just saying go.
Please make your way to your next round seats.
Because there's no way he's chumping there instead of trading with a token if he's not going to hit you with a sweeper.
Looks like we got another Legion War Boss here, folks. That Ben Friedman Goblin token is coming on in, and now a Devil looks like it'll be made as well. There from Tybalt. So we head back over to Ragan, who has another copy of Cleansing Nova, so this will clear things up. That Devil will die and deal a point of damage over to Ragan. And now Tybalt's not going to be doing a ton anymore, but it will still remain on the battlefield.
And that's the cost there of activating the Tybalt the turn before you're going to get hit. Now the Tybalt's basically tapped out now.
That's a Viashino Pyromancer. Trigger. Going to deal 2 to Ragan. The follow-up, I think, might be a light up the stage. We will. So take a look at the top couple of cards. Chain Whirler is one. Mountain is another. And Collins did need a land drop, so that light up the stage looking pretty good there. The follow-up, as he's already tapping some mana, is a Geodude Lava Runner. That's not on just yet as we head back over to Benjamin Ragan, who picked up a copy of Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, one of the best cards in the standard format, but a little bit different application in his deck.
And it's just too hard for Ragan to keep his head above water here. He can't leverage the Planeswalkers. He doesn't have enough removal. He can only follow up with other Planeswalkers. And he can't get the battlefield to be stable enough for him to be able to, you know, actually untap with one of them and start doing some things.
We're going to head back over to Collins. Collins will draw a card. I think we're in that situation, too, where Ragan is low enough that I think Collins is just probably going to ignore that Teferi.
I mean, there's no point in running it down. It requires so much resources. Just try to finish this game out the other way.
Chain Whirler will whirl some change. Teferi's going to fall down to 4, or Ragan's going to fall down a little bit lower to 2. And we'll head back over to Benjamin, who's picked up a copy of Lyra Dawnbringer. This is a little bit interesting.
I mean, he can play, well, keep in mind the Tybalt.
Less interesting. Good call.
So the Lyra here, you know, you can normally, in normal situations, you could go plus Teferi, play Lyra, untap with negate backup. You're looking pretty good. Some things can still go wrong, but you're looking pretty good. He might have to minus to get the Tybalt out of there and hope that Lyra's good.
I think that's the plan.
But Ragan loses to any spell, and Mullins has been missing land drops along the way.
Tybalt will come down because Collins had another one in hand, which means, again, Ben cannot gain life, attack with everything, and win the game. So Collins Mullen is going to win this game and match here over Benjamin Ragan, 2-0. Mono Red Aggro taking care of Azorius Super Friends, and for Collins Mullen, a former Open champion, of course, with a different aggressive deck in Humans and Modern in Cincinnati a couple of years ago, it's a win here once again. And he's 5-0 with Mono Red, a deck that I don't think was talked about maybe enough coming into this weekend.
There's still a ton of very good cards in it, and, you know, arguably too many good cards.